Well, joining me here in Doha is Mohammed Qubati, who was an advisor to the past 3 Yemeni prime ministers. He was also a member of the Yemeni National Dialogue Conference. Thanks for being with us on Al Jazeera. So, any hope now for the Yemeni Dialogue Conference?
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed, The question is, I agree, I'd like to reiterate what the acting foreign minister has said. Our big problem is the former dictator, the deposed dictator, Sergeant Saleh. He will continue, playing on. He's a master of his chief. He has been adamant, actually, to hold the world at ransom and to push the whole country into anarchy. Not only the country, now the region itself. I think hopes for the dialogue to be resumed would be quite difficult with this man still playing and pulling the strings and a backseat driver for the Houthis.
So what are the options, though, for the dialogue conference? At the time, it was described by the UN envoy Jamal bin Omar as being a historic moment.
Well, it was a historic moment because we have achieved something which is quite historical for Yemen. The outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference were something quite pivotal in the whole history of Yemen. It's just, we knew all the time that these forces, traditional forces represented by the former dictator Sergeant Saleh, and as well as the Houthis, all of these traditional forces wouldn't like to see a change. So when we came to the question of the, once the idea of a referendum on the new constitution, which we have agreed on in the National Dialogue Conference, they decided to, to derail the whole. All agreements had been hit, unfortunately, and I think one of the big loopholes and flaws in the GCC initiative was keeping this man inside the country, because all of the other spoilers were got rid of. The one and only one who remains now and who's really, disturbing the whole situation and the whole scene is the former dictator, deposed Sergeant Saleh. What's happening today in Aden is something quite worrying. He's trying to push on to Aden so that he could show that as if he's in control of the whole of Yemen. But our people actually on the ground now, they in Aden, people are suffering. Civilians are suffering. His men have managed to infiltrate between civilians, and a lot of casualties are happening. I think. So
what do you think the main aims right now are for the coalition? What is the long-term strategy here as well?
I think they have got to start. We think we have reached now a time where there should be some feet on the ground. Just, a sort of some special forces, perhaps they could be brought down in Aden, airport, which is under control with the legitimate government now.
And when you make that call, who will lead that?
This is the thing, because you need a sort of a forward center which could coordinate all actions with the command and control, centers of the whole operation, because there is nobody on the ground. Unfortunately, the local government has disappeared, and a lot of the people who were running the whole day-to-day, affairs in Aden turned out, most of them, to be, related and stooges of the former dictator who has ruled Yemen for 35 years, and he was appointing people, starting from prime ministers and even perhaps to keepers of, the different departments of the country. So I think, yes, you need some people there, a sort of a center in Aden to start, coordinating efforts. People are fighting in the streets. It's mostly youths and so on. They have managed to, a very good standfast has happened, but still there's nobody who can lead that. Nobody in Aden itself. Aden is now actually representing the Stalingrad of the Arab Peninsula. For the past, now 1 week or 2 weeks, more than 7 mechanized, regiments, they couldn't enter. But still, people now are falling, and
well, the UN, speaking of civilians, the UN is saying the situation in Yemen is extremely alarming. The country seems to be on the verge of total collapse. So how is all this affecting the civilian population?
In Aden, it's quite terrible. People they can't sleep at night, children, so on, and they're hitting most of all, water supplies being cut, electricity is being cut. There's no supplies in the different hospitals and different, surgeries and so on. So the situation, the humanitarian aspect of it is quite grave. That's why Foots on the Ground would help as well on those bases, on the humanitarian and as well on the fighting itself.
Okay.
So to coordinate the efforts of the people who are now standing very bravely to this aggression which is happening to them.
Mohammed Qubati, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera.